Alright, alright, what's really going on? Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Today, going to be taking a look at XRP, Ripple against USDT. Going to be assessing some of these key technical aspects of price action moving forward. Going to be looking at some of these pivotal areas of support and resistance I believe we're going to be interacting with in the very near future here. We have the dreaded break downward from what appeared to be a symmetrical-esque type triangle that we traded in for a period of weeks before what appeared to be a would look to be a quite bullish break upward. We had this, push above that kind of zone there. And then, things had to change, momentum had to change at any moment. And so we broke downward after this kind of relative fake out. And so will we be kind of bullish enough to find support and continue the uptrend and return to the dollar plus range for XRP, or will we kind of get trapped in the kind of lower sub-dollar kind of range here that we've kind of been trapped in for a period of time kind of not so long ago? Are you bullish? Are you bearish? What are you doing with your XRP? Do you trade? Do you hold? Or do you let the price action unfold? Are you a trader that scalps the market and is taking profit at every kind of key level they can? Or have you been holding XRP through kind of all this nonsensical sideways? And are you still holding? Or did you take profit at that kind of local sort of top there? Let me know in the comments down below. Jump right into it. We're going to recap this kind of relevant price action that's been kind of ridiculous, ascending along this ascending kind of trend line that I started back in the kind of middle of March of 2020. So we've kind of been rallying kind of above that for a period of time, trading downward for certain periods, trading kind of sideways along kind of a key accumulation zones. We had support around 24 cents back in kind of like September of 2020, and then we returned to it back in the end of December, and then end of like throughout January of 2021. And so we have price action kind of rallying up to like crazy higher highs, and then we have examples of really aggressive like dumps downward to return to from those kind of crazy lows that we came from. And so we have this kind of phase of price action here between sort of like the end of November of 2020 and realistically the kind of like beginning of April of 2021. We have price action trading for like over 130 days in this kind of ridiculous upper kind of zone of sideways, volatile up and down, to dump aggressively downward into a lower zone of kind of sideways up and down, before returning back to that upper zone and kind of like trading up and down for a period of time before inevitably kind of breaking upward here. And so now in this kind of new sort of phase of up, down, and sideways, we have returned to previous significant resistance that we interacted with multiple times kind of back in the end of November and again in the beginning of February of 2021. And so I suspect price action will stay short-term bullish if we can continue to close above this kind of zone here with lows of like 72 cents. But realistically, like 80 cents is going to be my kind of like local bullish kind of support range that I believe if price action can kind of stay above, we can sort of expect the price action, the trend to continue upward. And so I mean we are still looking rather bullish in my opinion. This does seem to be a a significant kind of pullback and a healthy retracement so far, but price action is still kind of playing out. The sell-off is still rather aggressive, and so we are interacting with some key resistance as well. I suspect some local resistance to be present around $1.06 and just under $1.15 to be a kind of significant zone that we're going to have to kind of fight our way through. And then we have kind of a next kind of upper area here, kind of above that $1.15, and under $1.39 is going to be the kind of next upper zone that we're going to have to find price action interacting with before we can see the kind of like highs around $1.80, like $2 kind of level that we were almost at. And so we seem to have price action kind of returning to that ascending trend line that I started back at the kind of COVID crash there. And so I suspect we could very well have a prolonged sort of phase of accumulation between these kind of two kind of lower ranges here, kind of above 80 cents. And so we could eventually have like another retest of this trend line before we kind of make our way back up to interact with those kind of upper levels above $1 there. And so there's definitely lots going on with XRP at the moment, and XRP does like to take its time to accumulate and will, slowly but surely kind of make its way back up over the course of kind of days. And so when we consider EngineeringRobo along with the Fibba Zucchini lines of Illuminati, Sacred Geometry, and mathematics, we can see a kind of new perspective come into play here. We have that sell 4 printing back at the 19th of May. And so that's been kind of supporting this kind of like short-term kind of bearish momentum kind of so far. We seem to have key support around that 0.382 level at 81 cents, just above my kind of like 79 cents, 80 cents kind of zone there. 0.382 is going to be some great bullish local support short-term local resistance is going to be that 0.5 Fibonacci line at like $1.03, just under my $1.06 resistance kind of zone. And so like I was saying, that's going to be probably the key kind of range I believe we're going to be interacting with sideways for a period of time as we kind of trade downward, in my opinion, before we can kind of see these buy suggestions come back into play, although the trend long term is still looking bullish in my opinion. The 0.618 is at $1.25. I believe that's going to be another kind of key point that we're probably going to have another kind of pullback off of before we interact with kind of that new sort of like resistance above kind of $1.38 and then under $1.51, just under that 0.786 line at $1.57. So we do have a lot of resistance kind of moving forward, in my opinion. And so I do suspect once we do get to these levels, we're going to kind of, it'll take kind of a few days, perhaps a week, to kind of get through them. We have the FOMO zone present there. This rejection off the FOMO zone is, pretty to be expected kind of thing. This is kind of what is typically occurs upon entering the FOMO zone. Price action, gets usually the sell pressure is they're very significant. So we have this sell off and we come back down. If the coin is ever so abundantly bullish, then we can have some very volatile price action up in the FOMO zone where FOMO is present. And so here's where tops are bought and rallies continue kind of thing, but usually the price action tends to want to come out of the FOMO zone at some point, and so there's very high sell pressure up at these levels. The fear and FOMO zone is typically used for kind of mid to long-term-ish investors and holders rather than traders. And so say you were accumulating XRP at these kind of lows back in the kind of end of December, beginning of January of 2021, end of January there of this year, and then you sold at our first interaction, you would have made 591% in like 77 days. And so that in crypto is a relatively midterm kind of trade. And when things happen so fast in the cryptocurrency market, that's that's a typical sort of like not necessarily long-term trade, but a midterm trade, in my opinion. Whereas because things are happening kind of so fast. So lots going on with XRP at the moment. It's definitely still this recovery has to play out over a period of time. What we consider the price of XRP against the price of Bitcoin, we can see some bullish price action, in my opinion. What appears to be a kind of key zone above my support found around 2262 Satoshi and just under 2890 Satoshi is going to be a kind of key range. I believe we're going to find our way between perhaps lows of like that kind of like 2091 or even like 20 kind of like 30 kind of Satoshi level there. We could have some wicks down below, but I suspect my bullish area to be between my kind of two zones there, my support and resistance lines there. We have significant kind of resistance present above kind of like 3476 Satoshi and kind of 3792 Satoshi that we interacted with kind of at the end of November of 2020, and that played a kind of key role in our kind of break downward here. And so at the moment, support found along this kind of 2265 support line is going to be rather short-term bullish in my opinion. But when we consider EngineeringRobo along with these Fibba Lamborghini, Fibba McSweeney's bacon beef weenies in a bikini flipping zucchinis, we can see kind of a new perspective come into play here when the sell, for, and hell are present. And so, I mean, this does suggest some perhaps bearish price action against the price of Bitcoin. We do have in the long term supporting the uptrend. We have the 200 daily moving average along with the cloud buy present still. So the trend, as long as it's above the 200 daily, kind of in this case daily moving average, and that cloud buy is present, I believe the trend to still be kind of bullish in the long term. Although with that sell, for, and hell present against the price of Bitcoin, we could very well see some prolonged sort of sideways here as we make our way sort of downward. I see that 0.618 line around the 20.022 Satoshi level there. That was kind of like the good. That was like my sort of like local sort of like bearish target there where wicks could low to. We have my support line there, like I was saying, around like 2269. The 0.5 Fibonacci level is at 2442 Satoshi, which is just under where prices currently are. I believe a very, very short-term bullish support line will be that 0.5 line, but I suspect price action to make its way downward. Local resistance is going to be my sort of 2892 so resistance there, correlating nicely with that 0.382 Fibonacci line at 2868, and so I do suspect that to be significant local resistance kind of moving forward. Just above that is the kind of bottom of my zone of slapping and shoving. We have the 0.236 line at 3406 Satoshi, just below my 3460 to 3789 range. So we have loss of resistance kind of ahead of us moving forward. We have the sell suggestions present against the price of Bitcoin, suggesting that we could very well see some prolonged kind of phase of sideways here and some kind of downward accumulation against the price of Bitcoin as it kind of figures out what it's doing. Speaking of the price of Bitcoin, when we consider the price of Bitcoin against US dollar tether, we can look at the ridiculousness that is present at the moment. And so we do have many sell suggestions, in play to suspect that we could very well see some continued kind of like prolonged sideways here. Price action is under the 200 daily moving average, meaning that we are going to see some very volatile ups and downs, in my opinion, as the fear, uncertainty, and doubt has to clear out. I was suspecting this kind of technical breakdownward for a couple weeks now. Price action was trading along this ascending trend line in this kind of manner. We broke downward, came up to retest it. There was very significant resistance around 57K, even though EngineeringRobo was bullish with a super buy and buy 4, and I was bullish as well. I suspected that we could technically very well break down and return to that 49K level, and so I did have bearish targets in the kind of like 30Ks, although we have plummeted through all of my short-term kind of like bullish local targets, and so we could very well see some short-term sideways price action as this sell-off might take a while to kind of recover. Although this is kind of almost, I wouldn't say nothing for crypto, but I mean a 50% pullback in a kind of multi-100% rally in like over a year is kind of like almost to be expected, because things went up so vertically. They have to come back down almost as vertically, and so price action, returning to these levels is ultimately very bullish long term, in my opinion, still. And so this could very well be some very good at times to be accumulating. We do have significant price action between kind of like highs of 41.8 and lows of like kind of like 29.7, like 30K kind of thing that we interacted with kind of between the beginning of January and kind of beginning of February of this year, so not too long ago. And so I mean, this is still just kind of like a beginning of the kind of like kind of a new phase of accumulation, a nice healthy kind of pullback and retracement so far, in my opinion. I wouldn't call this a crash just yet. But thank you for hearing my analysis. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Let me know what you're doing with your bag. If you have one, down below in the comment section. Subscribe here on YouTube. Check out all the other social media down below. Try EngineeringRobo free with link in the description. Are you bullish? Are you bearish? Do you trade? Do you hold? Are you selling at all these crazy lows? Are you buying during this phase of accumulation? What is your kind of perspective kind of moving forward? Thank you for tuning in, and tune in for the next one.